Fruit tree guilds are a fantastic way of combining plants and fruit trees that not only work well together, they actively support each other to give you productivity and beauty in your garden, a mini ecosystem of success. So if you want to try planting your own, on today's episode of Niall Gardens, I'm going to show you the 6 main plant groups that you need to include to create your own perfect fruit tree guild. Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back. Aren't these just beautiful? These are my new fruit tree guild beds. And would you believe that everything in each of these beds was only planted between, well, really March and now, so about 3 months. And just look at the colour, the interest, and the variety of gorgeous things that I've got. There are things to eat, things that benefit wildlife, and things that are just plain beautiful. And I am so much more excited about these beds than I should be. They've honestly been the reason that I've come into the veg garden every single day, just to see what's changing, what's coming into flower. I really adore them and they just make me so happy. And that's why I want to share all of this with you in my year-long series. In episode 1, I took the very first steps in creating these fruit tree guilds. And today, it's all about the specific planting choices to make sure that you have everything you need so that you can make your own fruit tree guilds a success. If you don't know what one is, in a nutshell, a fruit tree guild is a permaculture design concept that starts with, yep, you guessed it, a fruit tree. Around it, specific plant groups are chosen so that each bring a key benefit. That way, as well as working as a great plant in its own right, each of the plants work together in harmony, supporting each other, and most importantly, supporting the fruit tree at the centre of it. Essentially, one miniature ecosystem. Mine are in my 4 L-shaped beds here in the centre of the veg garden, and I'm not going to claim that the plants are planted in technically the correct positions. That's going to be the fun work, and the progress over the next year or 2 is honing exactly that. But what I love about the fruit tree guild concept is that I find it a really powerful way of using companion planting that just seems to intermesh so perfectly. Ever since I visited Maiju from her channel Spuds and Roses last August, and having seen her beautiful fruit tree guilds, I wanted to create the same here. And I am so glad that I did. So who better to help me than Maiju herself? She's going to be joining me, and together we're going to talk you through exactly what you need to make this a reality. The 2 of us are going to guide you through each of the 6 groups of plants and share what we've chosen specifically for our own guilds and why.
When first starting to choose plants for this apple tree guild, I did prioritise herbs and edibles where one plant could both benefit us and the tree. And because the space here is so small, I also try to use as many multi-purpose plants as possible to be sure all of their individual benefits work well for the guild.
The very first group of plants are attractors, and an attractor plant within a fruit tree guild is there to draw in beneficial insects, pollinators and wildlife that's going to contribute to the overall health and vitality of the whole guild, and in fact the garden and environment as a whole. These plants by their nature tend to have really nice attractive features such as vibrant flowers like the calendula here, lovely scent, or nectar-rich blooms like these cornflowers. That's going to lure in a diverse array of beneficial creatures. So how do attractor plants actually benefit the guild? Well, they serve several purposes, and for starters, they simply help to attract in pollinators like bees and butterflies, and that increases the chances of successful fruit production in each fruit tree. As well as that, they're going to attract in predatory insects that can help keep pest populations in check, reducing the need for chemical intervention, which is always a good thing. More insects mean more birds, so you're supporting the wider ecosystem, plus birds eat pests as well. And if that wasn't enough, they contribute to the overall beauty of the guild, something that's really important to me. creating something that I think is pretty darn beautiful. Here's what Maiju's got and what she's growing in hers.
Isn't this feathery foliage just stunning? And the main focal point is yet to come still. These are the leaves of a chamomile plant, a beautiful pollinator to attract beneficial insects to itself with its bright coloured button-centred flowers. And chamomile is so well known as a medicinal plant, but perhaps best known as a herbal tea ingredient. Tea made out of its flowers is mostly used to aid digestion and anxiety, or as a calming tea for bedtime. And even prettier is the Achillea or yarrow foliage, really fine and soft. Another ancient herbal medicinal plant, but in here used purely for attracting pollinators. Its flat-shaped flower heads bring a beautiful character to this planting combination and offer a great resting area and food for the pollinators. You have a lot of choices of colour with this plant too, but I've gone for more pastel tones of pinks. And this easily recognisable plant, if not at the moment, then definitely by the time the flowers are on, or when you brush yourself against it and the flowers are just starting to show now. This is lavender, another medicinal and also culinary herb, hugely popular plant by the pollinators for the fruit tree guild. And it wouldn't matter if you're using English lavender or French lavender, just for our climate, English lavender is much hardier and longer surviving plant.
Common examples of attractor plants include flowering herbs like borage or chamomile, which Maiju has, native wildflowers and aromatic plants like lavender or rosemary. And what I've used here is a mix of flowering plants like these lovely blue cornflowers. I've got both blue ones and these dark burgundy ones called black ball. Calendula here, which is stitched all the way through the beds, and also chives, which, although they've passed now, were covered with so many flowers a few weeks ago. I'll even leave some edible plants to flower, like a Babington leek here, and you may have noticed in a recent video lovely light yellow flowers. Believe it or not, those were turnip flowers from plants that had bolted, and instead I just left them so that the insects could benefit from the flowers. Once you've chosen some attractors, then it's on to the next group of plants, fixers.
I'm planting a sweet pea to climb up this cane support, as legume family plants are great as nitrogen fixing plants, and this includes all peas and beans, but also includes this wonderful lupin. The legumes brilliantly convert nitrogen from the air, bringing it down to the roots and making it available for the other plants around them. But the plants are doing this to support their own health and their own survival. And as this lupin here is a perennial plant, the roots will stay alive in the soil and it will try to use the nitrogen for itself too. And just to ensure a maximum benefit of nitrogen in the soil, I'm adding the sweet pea as a backup, as at the end of the growing season, this plant will die, but the roots are left in the soil to decay. And also throughout the growing season, I'm going to be removing the flowering heads of both of the plants just before they start to set seed, just to make sure that I'm benefiting as much as possible from the nutrients staying in the soil.
A really cool plant type, which is also fundamental to a fruit tree guild, is known as a dynamic accumulator plant. And it plays a vital role in enhancing the overall health and fertility of the guild. A dynamic accumulator plant is able to accumulate and make available important nutrients and minerals that are beneficial to the fruit tree and the other companion plants that are here. They've got really deep root systems, and they use these deep root systems to access nutrients from way down deep layers of soil and bring them up to the surface. They absorb essential elements and minerals from the soil, and depending on the plant in question, depends on what it's going to pull up. It stores them in their leaves and in the stems and in the roots, and as the dynamic accumulator plants eventually die back, they release that accumulated nutrient pool back into the surrounding soil as they decompose. This enriches the soil and makes these nutrients readily available, particularly to the fruit tree, as well as the other plants that are close to it, promoting healthier growth and increased productivity. Magic, right? The most common dynamic accumulator is this, comfrey. They form pretty big plants, as you can see, and given the opportunity, they're going to go everywhere. So be pretty careful about which one you choose. Comfrey can be invasive, so look out for a specific one called Bocking 14. This is what I've got here. It doesn't self-seed, so you get all of the benefits of comfrey and none of the invasiveness. Examples of other really good dynamic accumulator plants are things like clover, yarrow, and achillea, which I have here as well in the guild, and also borage. And while they're busy dynamically accumulating, they also have really great little bell-shaped flowers like this that add even more pollinator-friendly potential into your space. You might notice something through this video. Loads of plants actually tick more than one box. They might be great attractors and dynamic accumulators. They might be fixers and suppressors, or they might even repel some pests but attract other beneficial ones. That's the true beauty of this setup. The plants are like Swiss Army knives, and when they're planted together, everything supports everything else, and I love that. The next two plant groups are ones that I almost see as one single group, and that's mulchers and suppressors. That's because the list of plants is really very similar, and the plants tend to do both jobs really well. A suppressor plant refers to a specific type of plant that works like a living mulch or a ground cover. So here's what Maiju uses as suppressor plants in her garden.
Now moving along the planter to this rhubarb as a suppressor, still finding its feet and getting settled in because it was just planted about a year and a half ago. But its voluptuous leaves are already perfect for covering the ground around itself and soon giving us a harvest of these stunning red speckled stalks. Now, I have planted it to the northerly aspect of the apple tree as it can cope with partial shade perfectly. And this way, the leaves themselves as well will get a bit more of a wind shelter. As these impressive leaves are the key for keeping the soil temperature cool and suppressing weeds. And then rather than just throwing the leftover leaves to compost heap, I can leave them on the soil to keep the ground covered and reducing the watering needs. And as the leaves naturally compost down, they will end up feeding the soil biology too. So it behaves a bit as a mulcher too. But any plant that has dense growing habit, large leaves or even bulbous plants will be perfect as weed suppressors, as they just naturally create an unfavourable growing habitat around themselves.
I've got exactly the same here. Rhubarb plants really are super, and they have the power to be able to retain so much moisture underneath their leaves, suppress weed growth. I think that's probably the best bit. Let's face it, weeds are a right pain. They're really good at regulating the soil temperature. They prevent soil erosion, though that's not such a big issue in a raised bed like this, and they improve the overall soil health. When it comes to mulchers, another really good option is comfrey. You see how dense that leafy growth is? It's here behind me. That works so well as a mulching plant because when it dies back, all of that goodness will drop onto the soil and ultimately decompose, and that nutrition will go into the soil to benefit everything here. You can see by now, all of the plants really do come together to form something that works really well, and I love it. And the last group of plants I want to talk about are here, repellent plants. These are plant species strategically placed within a fruit tree guild to deter specific insects, animals, or even pathogens that may harm the fruit tree, its yield, or the other plants. This creates a natural and sustainable pest management system, reducing the reliance on chemical pesticides. Common examples of repellent plants in fruit tree guilds include marigolds, tagetes and calendula, garlic, onions and aromatic herbs like rosemary and lavender, which I've got over here, you'll see that I'm using ornamental onions rather than regular onions, and they're just about to come into flower. These are Allium sphaerocephalon, which have these tiny egg-shaped flowers. They're beautiful. I've also got chives planted all along the edges of the beds, which are past and now need cut back, but that strong scent of chive will deter pests that are sensitive to it. I've got marigolds in every single bed dotted through, both calendula and tagetes, and like everything else, all of these flowers, they're multifunctional. They're going to attract in beneficial insects, things like ladybirds and pollinators, but at the same time really actively repel the things that you don't want in the garden because they're either going to cause problems or they're just going to cause damage. So you can see how powerful this group of plants really is. Look at what can be created in just a few short months. A planting that's got fruit trees, flowers that are going to make your heart sing, edibles to pick and enjoy, and an ecosystem where everything just works in harmony. I can't believe that I hadn't heard of this sooner, and I'm so glad that I did find out about it. So try planting your own using these 6 groups of plants, and I hope that you'll have something that you love just as much as I love this. If you haven't seen the first episode where I laid the foundations of these fruit tree guilds and put the very starts of the planting in, make sure to check it out here. And until next time, see you later.